The snow was falling in small, hesitant flakes the morning my son told me I wasn't welcome. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't even a conversation. "Dad," he said over the phone, his voice tight but calm, "I just don't think it's a good idea this year. The kids, well, they need stability. And honestly, you being here, it stirs too much up." I looked out the kitchen window of the house we had lived in for 35 years. A single cardinal perched on the pine tree where my wife, Claire, used to hang bird feeders. The sound of her laughter echoed faintly in the back of my mind, the way memories sneak up on you when the world goes silent. I let the words settle. They stung, yes, but I didn't argue. Instead, I forced a smile he couldn't see. "Understood," I said. "Merry Christmas to you all." There was a pause, as if he expected me to fight back. When I didn't, he mumbled, "Yeah. Merry Christmas," and hung up. I set the phone down, picked up my car keys, and walked out the door without telling anyone where I was going. The funeral had been 6 months earlier. My son, Daniel, had stood beside me, stiff in a navy suit, his wife clutching his arm. He didn't cry, not then. I barely did. Grief had a strange way of freezing inside me, solid ice under the ribs. What Daniel never knew was that the week before she passed, Claire had whispered something to me. Her voice was thin, her hand shaking in mine. "I took care of you," she said. "No matter what happens with Danny." I didn't understand until the lawyer handed me a set of documents after the funeral, a second house, one I hadn't even known she bought, tucked away in a quiet town 2 states over. Paid in full. And a bank account, $960,000. Every detail carefully hidden, every paper signed. She knew our son. She knew how he could be, practical to the point of coldness, ambitious enough to look at his father and see not a man but an asset. I never mentioned it to Daniel. Not the house. Not the money. A week before Christmas, Daniel showed up at the house. He didn't knock. He just walked in, his wife trailing behind with a clipboard. "Dad," he said briskly, "start packing. The house is sold." I sat in Claire's old armchair, the one with the worn floral fabric, sipping lukewarm coffee. "Sold?" "Yes." He glanced at his wife, who nodded as if to confirm. "Market's hot. We couldn't waste time. You'll get something smaller, more manageable." "Manageable," I repeated. The word rolled around in my mouth like gravel. I looked at him, the boy who once begged me to build tree houses, who cried when his mother missed a school play because she was working late. He was 40 now, with lines around his mouth that made him look perpetually impatient. I didn't argue. I didn't ask where I was supposed to go. I just set my cup down and said, "Understood." His wife smiled, satisfied, and began jotting notes. They didn't notice the small smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. That night, I loaded a single suitcase into my old Buick. Snow crunched beneath my boots, the street lamps painting halos in the frozen air. The house behind me, our house, looked smaller than it ever had. A shell. The walls couldn't hold Claire anymore. I slid behind the wheel, turned the key, and drove. Past the town where everyone knew my name. Past the cemetery where Claire rested. Past the weight of a son who thought I had nowhere else to go. The road stretched out before me, and with every mile, the ice inside me cracked just a little. The town was quiet, the kind of American town people write songs about but rarely visit. A diner on the corner. A hardware store with a squeaky sign. Christmas lights strung sloppily across Main Street. The house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, pale blue with white shutters, 2 stories, porch swings swaying in the wind. Claire had chosen it. Claire had bought it. Claire had never told me why. The keys turned easily in the lock. Inside, everything smelled of fresh paint and cedar. She had left it ready, furnished, stocked, even little framed pictures of the ocean she loved but rarely visited. On the kitchen counter, a note in her handwriting. "For when you need it. Don't tell Danny. Live, Richard. Just live." I sank into a chair and let the tears come, hot and unrelenting. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Daniel. Dad, we need to go over logistics. Movers are scheduled for next week. You can stay with us until you find something, but space is tight. I'm fine, I said calmly. You can't just stay in a motel. I said I'm fine. There was silence on the line. Irritation. He was used to control. Fine, he said at last. Don't make this harder than it is. When he hung up, I placed the phone face down on the counter and looked around at the house my wife had built for me in secret. Harder than it is? He had no idea. As the days passed, I explored every drawer, every file cabinet Claire had tucked away. She was meticulous, recipes organized, bills labeled, journals stacked in chronological order. In one journal, dated 3 years before her death, I found an entry. Danny is not cruel, but he is careless. He sees us as stepping stones. I will not allow Richard to end up discarded like an old coat. He deserves peace, and if it means hiding what I've done, so be it. I read it 3 times, each word carving itself into me. Claire knew. Claire always knew. The knock came 3 days later. Loud. Impatient. I opened the door to find Daniel standing there, snow clinging to his shoulders. His wife waited in the car, engine running. Dad, he said sharply. Where are you? Here, I replied simply. This isn't. Daniel began, then stopped. His eyes flicked past me into the foyer, taking in the neat hallway, the basket of folded quilts, the faint smell of cedar. He stepped over the threshold like he might trigger a trap. You have a house? He asked finally. I do, I said. He stood there, stunned, snow melting in a collar he hadn't turned up. He dressed for confrontation, carefully ironed shirt, wool coat, boots with an urban shine that didn't belong on this quiet cul-de-sac. I imagined him rehearsing on the drive, all the speeches you craft to win. But this wasn't a courtroom, and I wasn't the opponent he thought I was. Since when? He said, but the tone wasn't curiosity. It was audit. It was inventory. Since your mother saw farther than either of us, I replied. Take your coat off, Danny. He bristled at the name. He hadn't been Danny since he grew into those square shoulders, but he shrugged out of the coat all the same. He held it like a shield a moment, then draped it over the banister with a tight jaw. You vanished, he said. Mom's house, our house, has movers coming. The buyer expects keys in 10 days. I show up and you're gone. I'm not lost, I said. Come to the kitchen. He followed me down the short hall. Claire had chosen everything with a quiet eye. Light oak table, ceramic bowl with lemons, a coffee maker that still smelled faintly of her favorite dark roast, though she'd never brewed a cup here. The morning light fell across the counter in a way that made me want to cook breakfast I wasn't hungry for. Daniel didn't sit. He planted his hands on the chair backs like a coach about to call a timeout. You can't do this, he said. You can't make me look like a... Like what? I asked gently. Like a fool, he snapped. I negotiated above asking. I lined up a closing date. I told them you were ready to transition to a condo, that we're helping with the logistics. His mouth twitched, a tell he never knew he had. I promised vacant possession. I poured coffee for me, and when he didn't refuse, for him. You promised away my life, I said. That was generous. He ignored that. The offer's all cash. They can sue if we breach. There's escrow. Timelines. You know how this works. I sipped. He'd always talked in systems, schedules, deliverables, legalities. He needed an architecture to lean on because his bones shook more than he let on. You accepted an offer on a house you don't own, I said. His laugh was too loud. Dad, you can be on title and still be impossible. That's why we... He caught himself. His eyes moved, quick calculation, remembering and choosing an angle. You signed a power of attorney when Mom had her first surgery. You remember? so I could handle stuff if you were overwhelmed. I set the cup down. I signed a limited POA for medical forms, I said, and I revoked it. 2 years ago. Revoked? He repeated, as if the verb itself were impolite. Your mother mailed the notice certified and filed it with the county. I have a copy. I watched his face stiffen, the way snow crusts when the sun hits it and then hardens twice as strong. Why would she do that? He asked. In case you mistook our grief for permission. The front door opened then, just a crack, and a woman's voice floated in. Hello? Richard? I'm Evelyn from across the street. I saw a car I didn't recognize and wanted to make sure you had someone to shovel later. The city plows buried driveways here. I'm fine, Evelyn. I called, forcing warmth into my tone. Okay, honey, she said, and the door clicked shut again. A new town and already someone cared how the snow might trap me. Claire would have liked that. Daniel looked at the door like it had offended him. So this is it? You run off to some backup house? With what, Dad? How? I could have deflected. I could have lied. Instead, I glanced at the small framed note on the counter, Claire's looping hand, her quiet command, Live, Richard. Just live. Your mother bought this, I said. With her money. What money? The audit again. The money she never mentioned, I said. Because she learned that some information isn't safe in every mouth. I let the words land. I didn't say the figure. I didn't need to. His eyes sharpened. He put the pieces together faster than I hoped. She had assets I didn't know about. She had a marriage, I said, and she safeguarded it. His breath hitched. Not quite a gasp, but close. Then came the pivot, the one he always deployed to transform discomfort into righteous urgency. You think I'm the enemy, he said, but I'm trying to keep you from making stupid choices. The old place is too big. Too much upkeep. The taxes alone. You didn't ask, I said. You arranged. I arranged because you fall apart. He shot back. You fell apart when she got sick. You don't eat right. You forget things. You stop moving. You stop answering the phone. I let that hang. He wasn't entirely wrong. There were days grief was a tar pit. He had bailed me out of small humiliations, a missed bill, a broken sink I pretended I could fix. Children grow up and start holding your elbows on the stairs, and it feels both tender and like a theft. Sit, I said. He did eventually. The coffee steamed between us. Outside, a child squealed somewhere, catching snowflakes on her tongue. I'm not selling anything, I said. At least, not because you cornered a timeline. You don't have a choice, he said, then flinched at himself. I mean, there are consequences. Breach. Damages. Who signed? I asked. He hesitated. The listing agreement has my name. The purchase and sale. I was going to bring it by, have you? Sign away the thing that kept me alive while she was dying. I finished. He pressed his lips together. His hand moved to the inside pocket of his coat, still on the chair, where he kept a pen that looked expensive and important. I'd bought him his first pen like that when he graduated law school. It had felt then like I was handing him an instrument he could pry the world open with. He had. And sometimes he pried people with it too. I need you to understand, he said softer, and his eyes did a quick glassy thing he refused to call tears. I'm in it with a partner. Not the buyer, different guy. He fronted some costs to get the house cleaned up, staged, a little roof work. We did a pre-inspection to keep the offer clean. There's a hard deadline. If this falls through, he's not patient. What does not patient mean, Danny? It means he doesn't do reminders, he said, staring at the rim of his cup. He does repossessions. For the first time, I felt my own heart clip faster. Who is he? Brett, he said. Brett Mercer. I didn't know the name, But the way Daniel said it had the fear of a boy who had borrowed his father's truck without asking and then hit a mailbox. Except the mailbox hit back. You borrowed money on a house you don't own, I said. I borrowed money on us getting you to do something reasonable, he countered. Which you are not doing. We stared. A dull clock ticked on the wall. Claire had picked it for its quiet, not its style. She had been like that, function hidden in a gentle face. There's an attorney's card in the top left drawer by the stove, I said. Your mother's. She left it for me. I think she wrote on the back what to say if this day came. I turned to the drawer, eased it open. The usual junk lived there: rubber bands, plant food spikes, a tape measure, and an envelope thick with purposeful weight. On the outside, in Claire's rounded blue ink hand, "If Danny presses." He watched me as I slid the card out. The name was clean and assertive. Ana Morales, ESQ, Elder and Estate Law. On the back, in Claire's script, "Call and say. Initiate the clause." The clause? Daniel said. I handed him the card. Your mother knew you'd be persuasive, I said. She also knew how persuasion feels when grief is still crawling in your bones. So she gave me a lever. He turned the card over and over as if it might hatch something gentler if he warmed it enough. A clause in what? A trust, I said. A living one. With a no-contest provision you won't like. His face changed, again that professional flicker, a calculation done in a corner of his head he didn't let me see. A trust, he repeated. So what, Dad? You're untouchable now? I thought about that word. Untouchable. There is a very American fantasy of inviolability. If you plan well enough, hire the right people, draw the right fences, Pain will learn your address but respect your privacy. Claire had not indulged in fantasy. She had just made practical choices in a world that punished the unwary. No, I said. I'm touchable where it matters. But not grabable. He stood abruptly, scraped the chair backward. The coffee sloshed. His self-control hung by a thin hinge. Okay, he said. Okay, Dad. You've made your point. You've got your hideout and your lawyer on speed dial. But Christmas is in 3 days. The buyer wants keys in 10. My partner wants his money in 7. He looked at the lemons in the bowl like maybe he could squeeze one to pulp and call that control. I can make this simple, or I can make calls I don't want to make. That sounds like a threat, I said. It's reality, he shot back. The front door opened again, less tentative this time, and Evelyn poked her head around the corner without apology. I made cinnamon rolls, she announced, then noticed the clenched air and stopped. Oh, I can come back. Please, I said, seizing the interruption. Stay. She stepped in with a Tupperware that looked like it had lived through 3 decades of potlucks. We take care of each other on this block, she said. At least we try. Daniel forced a smile. Hi. I'm his son. Bless you, she said like he'd sneezed. You look like you need a roll more than he does. He blinked. She set the container on the counter and peeled back the lid. The smell made something soft inside me groan awake. She glanced from his tense hands to my steady ones, and though she couldn't have known the specifics, she read the scene like any woman who's watched families pull their own threads. Snow's changing to sleet, she said. Don't be on the road after 5. Thank you, I said. She patted my arm and reached for the door. Oh, and Richard? The neighborhood watch meets Thursdays. We talk more than we watch. Bring a story. When she was gone, Daniel exhaled like he'd been holding his breath underwater. You made friends, he said with an odd, accusing admiration. I let them in when they knocked, I said. He rubbed a hand over his face. The angry heat had bled out of him, leaving a weary man worrying a hole in his glove. He looked suddenly what he was, a father of 2, a husband to a woman who made lists, a son trying not to drown in an identity that told him provision and control were synonyms. Dad, he said quietly, I made commitments. I thought we were aligned. You said understood. I said understood to ease your shoulders for an afternoon, I replied. Not to sign my walls to a stranger. You think I don't want what's good for you. I think you want what's neat, I said. What is stackable in your mind and your calendar? He swallowed. He stared at his coffee again. Do you ever wonder, he asked, so low I almost missed it, if Mom would still be here if I'd pulled her out of work earlier? If I'd insisted on checks sooner? There it was, the hidden meteor. He'd been traveling with it lodged in him for months, pretending it wasn't flaming. No, I said. I don't wonder that. I do, he said. Every night. I know, I said and meant it. We didn't speak for a long time. Somewhere, a snowplow rattled by. My phone buzzed once on the counter, a calendar reminder for a dental appointment I'd forgotten to cancel. Life groans forward in its toothbrush ways even when the heart is full of litigation. He broke the silence with something new in his voice, not plea, not command. A negotiation from a human place. What is the clause? He asked. It freezes the sale, I said. Automatically, if enacted by Attorney Morales. And it puts everything, including the old house, under the trust's management with a life estate for me. It shifts the center of gravity. He nodded slowly. So I can't move you. Can't market around you. Can't promise possession. He tried for a chuckle and didn't make it. Brett is going to love this. You need to untangle from Brett, I said. It's not that simple, he replied. But I'll figure it out. He reached for his coat, then paused. I didn't mean to make you feel like an asset, he said. I thought I was being a son. I believe you, I said. And I'm being a father. He was halfway to the door when he turned back. The money, he said. Where is it? In a place that requires you to be a son, I said. Not a broker. His mouth twitched again, but this time it wasn't irritation. It was something like respect. He opened the door. Cold air spilled in, sharp and clarifying. 3 days, he said. Christmas. Yes, I said. He hesitated then. Want me to bring the kids? Yes, I said again, and meant it more than anything. After he left, I stood in the doorway and watched his taillights disappear down the street like 2 small hearts moving away. I closed the door slowly and leaned my forehead against the wood. Then I picked up the card and dialed. Ana Morales. Came a firm, awake voice after 2 rings. Claire said to say initiate the clause. I said. There was a rustle of papers. I imagined a file with our name on it, tabs and colors my wife would have approved. Understood, Morales said. I'll file the necessary documents today and notify interested parties by certified mail. You'll receive copies. You should expect noise. I'm used to noise, I said. I need structure. You married the right woman, she said, a warm, precise humor in her tone. We designed exactly for this. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Will this hurt him? I asked, surprising myself. It will inconvenience anyone who assumed you were movable, she said. It will protect you. It will create room for conversations not conducted at knife point. That was Claire's language. Yes, I said. That was Claire. Mr. Hale, she said softer. Grief makes people transactional. We designed this so you could be human. After we hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and put my hand flat on the wood. It was still warm from where Daniel's palm had pressed into it. I traced the grain with a fingertip like a line on a map, thinking of all the ways we travel away from and back to each other. A text pinged, an unknown number, local area code. The message was short. Bring the keys to 14 Meadow at noon tomorrow. We need to talk. B.M. I stared at the letters B.M. and imagined a man who didn't do reminders. Somewhere between then and now, I had stepped into a different play. Claire had written me a part, but some of the other actors didn't know the script. That was okay. I could improvise. I set the phone down beside the lemon bowl, looked at Claire's note, Live, Richard. Just live, and found, to my surprise, that I was hungry. I warmed a cinnamon roll and ate it standing up, as if I sat, I might slide into a habit I was trying to escape. Outside, sleet began to patter on the porch roof. The porch swing creaked, empty for now, moving to a rhythm the house already knew. The second drawer under the stove held a small steel box with the key taped beneath it. I opened it and found more of Claire's hand. A ledger. A list. Names I recognized and a few I didn't. At the top she'd written, in capital letters that were not her usual, "If he tries to sell before you're ready." Underneath, steps. Call Anna. Forward mail. Cancel the landscaping contract at the old place so it looks less like a model home and more like a living thing no one can stage. Move the photo albums. Hide the spare deed. Tell Richard to breathe. I laughed then, actually laughed, at that last line. Tell Richard to breathe. As if I were some employee at a desk who needed memo-style reminders to keep my chest rising and falling. But I took the memo. I filled my lungs and held the air a moment as if I were stealing something necessary from an unkind world. The next morning would arrive. Meadow Street would need walking. Brett Mercer would need meeting. And somewhere in the middle of it, my son would need his father to be steadier than a threat and stronger than an apology. I rinsed my plate, dried it, and placed it in the cabinet. The clock ticked. The house listened. I turned off the kitchen light and went to find the guest room Claire had made for me in a world where she was absent. The sheets were new, tucked with hospital corners. I slid between them and found, tucked under the pillow, one more note in her hand. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a person to be loved. If he forgets, remind him. I slept like that sentence was a hand on my chest, steadying the rise and fall I had promised to keep. The following morning the sleet had hardened into a glassy crust over the neighborhood. I scraped it from the Buick's windshield, the sound loud in the quiet cul-de-sac. Evelyn waved from across the street, bundled in a coat that made her look like a quilt with boots. She didn't ask where I was going. That kind of restraint was a kindness. Meadow Street was only 4 blocks away. The number, 14, sat on a leaning mailbox, black paint chipped. The house behind it was a split level with sagging gutters, the kind of place that looked unbothered by visitors. A pickup idled in the driveway, exhaust puffing in gray clouds. The man leaning against the hood was younger than I expected. Mid-40s, heavy jacket unzipped, boots scuffed. His eyes tracked me like I was already late. You Richard? He asked. I nodded. I'm Brett. No handshake. Just a name thrown like a card on a table. We got a problem. I've heard, I said evenly. He gestured toward the house, and we stepped inside. The living room smelled of drywall dust and old coffee. No furniture except 2 folding chairs and a card table. He sat, I stayed standing. Your son promised me possession, Brett said. I put down 25 for prep work, cleaners, staging, roofing. I don't float money for free. Then you should loan it on a house that doesn't belong to your partner, I replied. His mouth curled. Danny said you'd be stubborn? He didn't say you'd be clever. Stubborn keeps people alive. Clever keeps them free, I said. He drummed his fingers on the table. I don't do lawsuits, old man. Too slow. Too many papers. I do solutions. And my solution is simple. You sign, you walk with a check, everybody's happy. I don't need your check, I said. His eyes sharpened. Everyone needs a check. This is America. I pulled Claire's note from my pocket, not to show him, just to feel the crease. My wife disagreed, I said softly. He leaned back. Then maybe you don't understand who you're crossing. I let the silence stretch. I had learned in grief that silence can be louder than shouting. Finally I said, My son made promises he couldn't keep. You'll need to collect from him, not me. That's messy, Brett said. Messy makes people disappear. I met his gaze. Then disappear him. But leave me out of it. For a moment I thought he'd slammed the table, But instead he laughed, a single bark. You've got iron, old man. I'll give you that. He stood. But iron rusts. Think about what's best for your boy before I do. I turned and walked out. The Buick's engine coughed before settling. As I pulled away, Brett's pickup rumbled behind me for 2 blocks, then peeled off down another street. A warning, not a chase. Back at the house, Evelyn was shoveling her walkway. She looked up, saw my face, and said, "You met him." I stopped cold. "You know Brett?" "Everyone knows Brett," she said. "He runs crews around town. Roofing, hauling, sometimes cars that don't come back. Folks tolerate him because he fixes fast and doesn't ask for permits. But nobody invites him for pie." She leaned on her shovel. "Careful, Richard. He doesn't bluff." "Neither do I," I said. That night Daniel called. His voice was raw, the kind he used after losing a case. "You saw him?" "Yes." "He threatened you?" he implied. Daniel swore under his breath. "Dad, I can fix this. Just give me time. Don't escalate." "I already did," I said. "Your mother left instructions. The trust is active." "You filed it?" Panic in his voice now. "Yes." "God." He exhaled shakily. "Dad, you don't understand. Brett, he doesn't wait for paperwork. He'll come back. Then I'll be here," I said calmly. "You're not afraid? Of him?" "No." "Of losing you?" "Yes." The line went quiet. Then Daniel said, "I'll come tomorrow. We'll talk." I didn't sleep much. Around 2 a.m. I walked the house, each creak of the floorboards reminding me this place was mine, built in secrecy but now fully alive. In the study I found another envelope in Claire's handwriting. Inside, photographs. Daniel at age 6, gap-toothed smile. Daniel at 16, varsity jacket, awkward pride. Claire holding him, tired but radiant. A note beneath them: "He will forget his heart before he forgets the law. Remind him." I placed the photos on the table. Tomorrow, my son would sit across from me, and between us would not be contracts or threats, but proof of who he had been. Proof of what was worth saving. The next morning the sky was brittle blue. I made coffee, set out the photos, and waited. When Daniel arrived, his face was pale, eyes rimmed red. He looked at the photos before he even sat down. His hand reached, then pulled back. "She saved everything," he murmured. "She saved you," I said. He sank into the chair. "Dad, I messed up. I thought I was protecting you, but really I was cashing you in. Like a policy." His throat worked. "Brett won't take a loss quietly. I need help." "You have it," I said. "But not the kind you're asking for." "What then?" "Time," I said. "The trust buys us time. Enough for you to untangle. Enough for you to remember you're not alone." He pressed his palms to his eyes. "And if he doesn't give us that?" I thought of Claire's steady script, her foresight layered like armor. "Then we remind him there are things money can't repossess." Daniel looked at me, really looked for the first time in months. "You're not moving, are you?" "No," I said. And for the first time, he smiled, a small, cracked thing, but real. "Good," he whispered. That night, as the house settled into its winter quiet, I felt Claire's presence not as absence but as structure. Her choices had built walls stronger than any contract. And within them, for the first time since she died, I believed survival might be more than breathing. The storm outside thickened, snow piling against the porch swing. Tomorrow would bring more conversations, more pressure, more Brett. But tonight, I sat at the table with the photographs spread before me, and let memory be both shield and weapon. Because the game had shifted. And for once, it was on my terms. The storm arrived with a violence the weatherman had downplayed. By morning, snow had drifted against the porch and sculpted walls, burying the swing halfway. Power lines bowed in the wind, and the whole neighborhood seemed to exhale in nervous gusts. Daniel had stayed overnight, on the couch, wrapped in a quilt Claire had stitched years ago. I found him awake before dawn, staring at the ceiling like it held a verdict. "You didn't sleep," I said. "I don't deserve to," he replied. "You're still breathing. That's deserving enough." He sat up, rubbed his eyes. "He texted me," he said, voice hoarse. "3 times. Wants the money by tomorrow. Says if I don't bring it, he'll come here." I poured us coffee, steady hands masking a heart that ticked faster. Then let him. Daniel snapped his gaze to me. "Dad, you don't get it. He's not bluster. He brings people. He makes scenes. He doesn't care about the law until he's forced to." I set the mug in front of him. "And that's why your mother planned for more than law." By mid-morning the knock came. Not polite. A pounding that rattled the frame. I opened the door to find Brett standing there with 2 men at his shoulders, both younger, both wearing the uniform of intimidation, dark coats, hard stares, silence. "You didn't come to me," Brett said. "So I came to you." Daniel stepped forward, jaw tight. "I said I needed time." "And I said tomorrow," Brett shot back. His eyes slid to me. "You want your old man dragged into this?" I raised a hand. "Gentlemen, let's not freeze on the porch. Come in, warm up. We'll talk like people." They hesitated. Brett finally nodded, and they entered. Snow hissed off their boots onto Claire's rug. We sat at the kitchen table. I slid the photographs closer, deliberately. Brett noticed, smirked. "Family album? Cute. Doesn't pay bills, though." "No," I said, "but it pays debts you don't recognize." He leaned forward. "I don't care about sentiment, old man. I care about 25 grand plus interest. I care about promises made by this." He jabbed a thumb at Daniel. "And broken." Daniel clenched his fists. "I'll pay you back." "When?" "Soon." Brett laughed, low and ugly. "Soon doesn't keep my books clean." I spoke then, calm and deliberate. "You'll get your money. Not today, not tomorrow. But you'll get it, in a way that keeps you whole and keeps my son standing." "And why should I believe you?" "Because unlike him, I don't make promises I can't keep." One of the younger men shifted, restless. Brett shot him a look, then back at me. "What's your play, old man? Some hidden fund?" I didn't blink. "Something like that." Daniel turned to me, confusion and hope warring in his face. He wanted me to say the number, 960,000, but I didn't. Brett didn't need figures. He needed certainty. "You'll be paid," I said again. "But you push too hard, and you'd get nothing. You spook law, you'd get nothing. You try force, you get enemies you don't want." Brett studied me. The room stretched taut. Finally, he sat back. 2 weeks, he said. "No more." Daniel started to protest, but I laid a hand on his arm. 2 weeks, I agreed. Brett rose, motioned to his men. At the door, he turned back. "You've got steel, old man. I'll see if it's worth anything." And then he was gone, snow swirling into the gap before I shut the door. Daniel slumped into the chair, head in his hands. 2 weeks. "Dad, where are we going to find that?" I looked at Claire's note still on the counter. "Live, Richard. Just live." "Your mother left more than you realize," I said. He lifted his head, eyes searching. "The money?" "Yes." "And no," I replied. "She left structure. Protection. But money too, if it comes to that." "Then why not just pay him off now?" "Because you don't feed a stray dog by throwing steak. You teach it boundaries first." Daniel blinked, then gave a short, shaky laugh. "Mom used to say that about me. She wasn't wrong." That night the power went out. The storm howled harder, glass rattling. Daniel and I lit candles, wrapped ourselves in quilts. In the flicker, he finally spoke what he hadn't dared. "I thought you'd hate me," he said. "For selling the house. For treating you like property." I sipped the lukewarm coffee we'd reheated on the gas stove. I don't hate you. I hate the fear that made you do it. His throat worked. Fear of what? Of failing, I said. Of losing control. Of being less than the man you think you have to be. He looked into the candlelight, shadows sharp on his face. I am less, he whispered. No, I said. You're just lost. And lost can be found. For the first time in months, maybe years, he let himself cry. And I didn't move to stop him. By morning, the storm had passed. Branches littered the street, the porch swing frozen in a drift. Evelyn knocked with thermoses of soup, her eyes scanning our tired faces. She didn't ask? She just pressed the food into my hands and said, "Stay warm, boys." Daniel watched her leave. "How do you do that?" he asked. "Do what?" "Get people to show up for you." I smiled faintly. I opened the door. We ate in silence. Then Daniel said, "If Brett comes back before the 2 weeks, what then?" I looked out at the snow-bright street. "Then we remind him of something he's forgotten." "What's that?" "That family, when it remembers itself, is harder to repossess than money." Daniel frowned, unsure. But I knew he would understand, soon. Because Claire's plan wasn't just about houses or trusts. It was about breaking the cycle of fear that turns sons into brokers and fathers into assets. And the time had come to finish what she started. 2 days after the storm, the envelope arrived. Thick, official, the kind of letter that carries weight even before it's opened. The return address read Morales and Associates, Elder and Estate Law. Daniel watched me slit it open with the butter knife. Inside were 3 copies of a certified filing. The trust was active. The house, both houses, were shielded under Claire's design. There was a clause, detailed in legal precision, that barred liquidation without my direct, notarized consent. Any unauthorized attempt triggered penalties, criminal and civil. Daniel read it once, then again, jaw tightening. "She thought of everything," he murmured. "No," I said softly. "She thought of us." That night, I went through more of Claire's journals. In the back of one, pressed flat, was a folded letter sealed with tape. My name scrawled on the front. "Richard," it began, "if you're reading this, then I'm gone. I know Danny will push, not because he doesn't love you, but because he doesn't know how else to survive. He believes control equals safety. You must show him that love is stronger. The money is there to protect you, but also to free him. One day, he'll need it more than you will. Give it to him, but only when he remembers who he is." My hands trembled. She had known the shape of this future, the jagged outlines of every mistake, every fear. I placed the letter on the table where Daniel would see it in the morning. Brett came back on the 7th day. No storm this time, no shadows. Just him, alone, leaning on the Buick in my driveway like it belonged to him. Daniel tensed beside me at the window. "Don't," I warned. "Stay here." I opened the door and stepped onto the porch. The air was crisp, the kind that makes your breath visible, proof you're still alive. "You've got 1 week left," Brett said. "I know. You've got it?" "Maybe." His grin was sharp. "You like games?" "No," I said. "I like rules. And you don't seem to know them." That grin vanished. He stepped closer, boots crunching ice. "You think the law protects you? Paper doesn't stop fists." I didn't flinch. "Fists don't stop what my wife built." He studied me for a long moment, then shook his head. "You're either brave or senile." "Neither," I said. "Just married well." He barked a laugh, but there was no humor. 1 week. After that, no more courtesy. He left without another word. Inside, Daniel exploded. "Why do you taunt him? Do you want him to snap?" I handed him Claire's letter. "Read." He did. And when he looked up, his eyes were wet. "She trusted me," he whispered. "Even when she shouldn't have." "She always did," I said. He pressed the letter to his chest. "So what do? We wait," I said. "And when the week is up, we show him something he doesn't expect. The week crawled. Evelyn checked in daily with food and quiet concern. Daniel barely left the house, pacing like a man in a cell. I spent hours at the table, sorting papers Claire had left, piecing together her invisible architecture. On the sixth night, I found another document hidden in the ledger box. A bank certificate, untouched, accruing interest. $960,000. Daniel saw the number and froze. That's real? Yes. Then why not just give it to Brett and end this? I closed the box. Because it's not his. It's yours someday. When you've earned it. I don't deserve it, he said bitterly. Not yet, I agreed. But you will. The seventh day came like a drumbeat. Noon sharp, Brett's truck pulled up, louder than necessary. This time he came to the porch alone. Well? He demanded. I held up a small envelope. Inside is a cashier's check. $25,000. Your investment, returned in full. He snatched it, opened, checked the slip. His eyes narrowed. No interest. You'll survive, I said. Or you can push harder and walk away with nothing. For a tense moment, I thought he'd lunge. Then he stuffed the envelope into his jacket. You win this round, he said. No, I corrected. My wife did. He stared, then smirked faintly. Hell of a woman. Yes, I said. He left without another word. Daniel sagged into a chair. That's it. He's gone? For now, I said. He shook his head. Dad, I don't get it. You could have buried him with that money. Why hold back? Because you don't beat a man like that with dollars. You beat him with limits. He learns he can't move you. That's more powerful than cash. Daniel rubbed his face. And the rest of it? What happens now? I placed Claire's letter in his hands again. Now we learn what she really meant. That night, for the first time since Claire's funeral, I slept without waking. Because the storm had passed. But I knew this wasn't the end. It was only the opening Claire had written for us. Daniel stayed through New Year's. He claimed it was because the roads were icy, but I knew better. He wasn't ready to leave the protection of this house, or of me. On the second day of January, he finally asked the question I'd been waiting for. Dad, what now? Brett's quiet, but quiet with him feels worse than noise. I stirred sugar into my coffee. Now you remember what your mother wanted. And what was that? His voice cracked. That you learn the difference between control and care. That evening, Daniel's wife, Marissa, brought the children. 2 boys, 10 and 12, loud from the cold air, stomping boots on the porch. Their laughter filled the house like light spilling through cracks. For a moment, Claire's absence hurt sharper. She would have hugged them both until they squirmed away. Daniel stood awkwardly in the doorway, watching them race down the hall. They don't even know, he whispered. What I almost dragged us into. They don't need to, I said. They need their father. Marissa gave me a look, half gratitude, half warning. She had sensed more than Daniel thought. She always did. The next morning, a letter arrived by courier. Not legal stationery this time, just plain white, block handwriting. Debt cleared. Consider this a lesson. Don't waste my time again. Signed B. M. Daniel read it 3 times. That's it. He walks away. Not quite, I said. He leaves a mark. But he won't cross this line again. Daniel exhaled hard, shoulders dropping. For the first time, he looked 10 years younger. That night, after the kids were asleep in borrowed quilts, Daniel sat across from me at the kitchen table. His voice was low. Dad, I sold you out. For money I didn't even need. Because I thought if I kept control I'd be safe. But all I did was betray you. I met his eyes. You were scared. I was selfish. He countered. And Mom knew it. Yes, I said. But she also knew you could change. That's why she left me the choice to give you what she saved. His head snapped up. The money? You'd still, after everything? When you're ready, I said. He swallowed hard. I'm not. Not yet, I agreed. 2 days later, Evelyn invited us to the neighborhood watch meeting. We went, all of us, crammed into a stranger's living room with mismatched chairs and trays of cookies. People swapped stories, petty thefts, icy sidewalks, who needed help with firewood. When it was my turn, I spoke simply. I lost my wife this year. My son and I, we've been learning how not to lose each other. The room was silent, then full of nods. Evelyn squeezed my arm. Daniel's jaw clenched, but not with anger, with something heavier. On the walk back, he whispered, She would have loved this place. She already does, I said. That night, Daniel knocked on my door. He carried Claire's ledger, the one I had kept locked away. Teach me, he said. Everything she built. The trust. The accounts. All of it. Not so I can take it. So I can protect it. I studied him. His eyes were clearer than they'd been in years. He wasn't auditing anymore. He was asking. All right, I said. But it comes with a condition. What? That you stop seeing me as an asset. And start seeing me as your father. His throat worked. Deal. We spent the next week at the table, day after day, going through every file. I explained what Claire had hidden, why she'd hidden it, how the clauses worked. Daniel took notes, asked questions, argued when something didn't make sense. For the first time, it felt like we were building together, not negotiating. On the final day, I slid the bank certificate across the table. He stared at the figure, lips parted. Nearly $1 million, he whispered. Yes. And you're giving this to me? No, I said firmly. I'm entrusting it. One day. When you've proven to yourself, not to me, that you're worthy of it. Until then, it stays locked. He nodded slowly. Fair. The children begged to stay longer. They liked the house, the snow forts in the yard, the way Evelyn baked too much and forced cookies on them. For once, Daniel didn't rush them home. And in the quiet hours after they fell asleep, he and I sat by the fire, not as combatants, but as men bound by the same loss and the same blood. He finally said the words I thought I'd never hear. Dad, I'm sorry. And I answered the only way Claire would have wanted. I know. And I forgive you. The house seemed to breathe easier after that. As though Claire herself had been waiting for those words. But deep down, I knew the story wasn't finished. Because Brett Mercer had taught me something too: peace is never permanent. And when the next storm came, it would test whether Daniel had truly changed, or only borrowed strength from me. Winter thawed into a gray March, the kind where the ground is mud and the sky refuses to choose a color. Life slowed into something almost normal. The boys visited on weekends, Marissa brought casseroles, Daniel helped repair a sagging gutter on the porch. For the first time since Claire's funeral, I felt like I was not just surviving, but living. Then Brett returned. Not with fists, not with threats, not even with his truck rumbling like thunder. He appeared at the diner on Main Street one morning when Daniel and I were having breakfast. He slid into the booth across from us, casual as a neighbor. You're still here, Brett said. Where else would I be? I replied. He smirked. I like a man who doesn't run. Makes things more interesting. Daniel stiffened. What do you want, Brett? Brett stirred sugar into his coffee, calm. Business. I've been thinking. You people, you've got resources. Hidden, maybe? Doesn't matter. What matters is this: I could use partners who know how to keep things steady. You've got stability. I've got reach. We could be useful to each other. Daniel gaped at him. After everything, you think we'd... Danny. I cut in, calm. Let him finish. Brett leaned forward. I don't need your money. I need your name. Respectable. See, people trust an old man with steady eyes and a son who talks like a lawyer. Put that on paper. Suddenly doors opened for me. Thanks. Town contracts. No more back doors. Daniel's fists clenched. You want to launder yourself through us. Brett chuckled. Such an ugly word. I'm offering you a seat at a bigger table. I looked at him for a long moment, then said, No. His smile faltered. Think carefully. I have, I said. My wife built walls to keep men like you out. I won't knock them down for the sake of a larger table. For the first time, Brett looked unsettled. He studied me, then Daniel. You'll regret it, he said quietly. Men like me don't go away. I met his gaze. Neither do men like me. He left his coffee untouched and walked out. Daniel was trembling. Dad, why didn't you let me handle that? He's not done. I know, I said. That was the test. What test? Yours, I said. To see if you'd still try to fix me with deals. But you didn't. You stood with me. Daniel blinked. His hands slowly unclenched. I did. You remembered who you are, I said. 2 weeks later, Brett's name showed up in the paper. Arrested in another county for fraud and racketeering. His empire, small and loud, collapsing under its own weight. Daniel read the article twice, then folded it. Guess you were right. Sometimes you just have to wait. I nodded. Your mother always said the loudest storms burn out first. Spring came. The boys played baseball in the yard. Marissa planted flowers along the porch. Evelyn brought lemonade and claimed she only stopped by because she, accidentally, made too much. One evening, Daniel sat beside me on the porch swing, watching the sunset. He cleared his throat. Dad, I've been offered a new position. A firm in the city. Less money, but more honest work. I think I'm going to take it. I smiled. That sounds like something your mother would approve of. He nodded. I keep hearing her voice, you know? In little things. Like she's still steering me. She is, I said. He turned to me. About the money. The trust. I don't want it. Not yet. I want to prove, to myself, that I can stand without it. I put a hand on his shoulder. Then you already have. That night, alone in the kitchen, I read Claire's last letter again. Give it to him when he remembers who he is. I folded it carefully, slipped it back into the ledger. The time wasn't yet. But it was coming. And when it did, I knew Daniel would no longer see it as inheritance. He would see it as what it was always meant to be, a reminder that love outlasts control, and family cannot be repossessed. The house settled into quiet as the stars came out. I looked at the empty chair across from me, and for the first time, I didn't feel the ache of absence. I felt presence. Claire had written the ending long before I lived it. And now, at last, we had arrived. The seasons turned. By the following Christmas, the house Claire had bought for me, the house she had hidden away like a secret gift, was no longer a refuge. It was a home. Daniel and his family came early that morning. Marissa carried pies, the boys dragged in armfuls of wrapped gifts, and Daniel himself brought nothing but a smile I had not seen in years. A smile free of calculation. We gathered around the tree, the one I had decorated alone the year before. This time, it glittered with ornaments the boys had made, clumsy and bright. Laughter filled the rooms. For the first time since Claire's passing, the air didn't feel heavy. It felt alive. After dinner, Daniel sat across from me at the kitchen table. The same table where we had once faced Brett's threats, where Claire's notes had saved us both. He placed a folder in front of me. Inside were papers from his new firm, contracts for clients that were clean, honest, small-town work. He looked me in the eye and said, I'm done with shortcuts. No more promises I can't keep. I nodded. Your mother would be proud. Later, when the boys were asleep on quilts near the fire and Marissa was humming in the kitchen, I stepped onto the porch. Snow fell lightly, dusting the porch swing Claire had loved. I sat, listening to the creak of the chains, and felt her beside me. She had known all along that the fight wasn't about houses or money. It was about love, trust, and the quiet strength to let a son stumble until he found his way back. The $960,000 was still untouched, locked where she had left it. But I realized then, it was never about the figure. It was about the faith it represented. Someday, I would give it to Daniel, not as a rescue, but as recognition. Not because he needed saving, but because he had learned how to stand on his own. The snow swirled, soft and endless, wrapping the house in silence. I closed my eyes and whispered into the cold night. "We're all right, Claire. You can rest now." And for the first time in a long time, I felt that I could too.